Addy Soldiers. If I make a joke about hit the deck, is that suddenly going to activate a bunch of theater kid sleeper agents? If you don't know me, my name is Rachel, and as you can probably tell from the first 10 seconds and or my just general obnoxious personality, I'm an ex-theater kid. And even though on the day-to-day I'm a quiet, bookish person who has a 9-to-5 day job, you know, once a theater kid, always a theater kid, just like the stage lights they call. And I've had a long and storied, no pun intended, history with theater. I used to do theater in high school, then I did a little bit of it in college, and even now I dance fairly regularly on stages, and I'm doing events and moderation that happen in theaters, so, you know, I know how to respect a call time. I know what stage left is. And because stage events and theater has been such a wonderful, large part of my life for so long, I also tend to look for those kinds of themes in other medias, such as books. And because recently I have been on stages more often, and I've been in the theater kid mindset of chaos, I decided to make a list of books that give theater kid energy. Although this video idea did kind of come up out of nowhere, so I have not done a Q to Q dry run. And, you know, I'm just gonna vamp, and we'll see how well this improv show goes. So without further ado, enter into the house, grab something from the concession, and turn off your cell phones while we talk about these 7 books that I think embody energy of the theater. To get the giant stage risers out of the way, I know everyone's gonna be like, what about If We Were Villains? We all know about If We Were Villains by ML Rio, okay? It basically started the second wave of dark academia stuff, where it's like, a bunch of ex-theater kids who are all now in their 30s and 40s have to reflect on a murder of one of their classmates when they were in Shakespeare school, okay? It's very good. I don't have a physical copy of it. And like, of course it's the Shakespeare kids, okay? They're the weirdest, and I say that as one. It's just like, once you do King Lear, your life is forever different. It's just, there's no going back. This was a very interesting way of combining a modern thriller with a, like, Shakespearean play experience. I don't know, you kind of have to be in one to understand it, which I know sounds like a cult, because it kind of is. What I love about modern Shakespeare is the ways that so many people have retold it, and in different settings and in different ideas of gender and sexuality. And this one in particular, reading the way that this set of students puts on King Lear is so fascinating. Like, what do you mean they just like have been waiting in the lake for like 2 hours? What? I want to do that, but no, the time that I did it, our theater had a budget of like -$6, so we did a black box stage and everyone had to thrift their costumes, but no one knew what the 1920s were supposed to look like. Why do we set it in the 1920s? Everyone knows about this already, so here you go, fan service. And this is what I mean by there are 2 types of theater books, because there is a book that has a theater in it that surrounds theater, and then there is a book that embodies theater. So the second book we obviously have to talk about is The Night Circus by Erin Morgenstern, a stunningly written historical fantasy about 2 rivals in a magical circus who start to fall in love. And like circus people, dancers, theater kids, D&D writers, you know, we all kind of are splashing around in the same soup that is underfunded performance art. This book is not theater, but it is theatrical, and that's why I love it. All fiction is fantasy, right? We read for escapism, and this asks, what if theater was not bound by any physical boundaries? What if we could use magic to create shows and performances and magical objects that all give you the sense of awe and wonder? It also has such a lovely depiction of found family, which is also why I fell in love with theater, being the weird outcast kid and finding this wonderful, warm group of people who are all ridiculous and yet also love the same thing you love and are so accepting. She also plays with color so well in this, which is very parallel to stage performances and film. It's incredibly immersive and a perfect book for winter, in my opinion. Now, when I say theater, what comes to mind for me are pre-planned stage shows, musicals, and improv. Now, I by no means am a good improver, but I do know the golden rule of improvisation, which is yes and. If you're putting on an improv show and someone comes over and says something wild, you cannot automatically shut them down. That is a no-no in the rule of improv. You have to say yes and contribute something to the scene, and I feel like this book really embodies that. What happens when yes and goes too far? Because this cast of characters basically yes anded their way into a dragon quest, and it's I'm Afraid You've Got Dragons by Peter S. Beagle. In the backwater kingdom of Belmontane, dragons are seen as little more than pests. And our main character Robert is a dragon exterminator who's trying to take over his father's job, even though he hates it and actually really loves dragons. And he gets hired by the royal family to de-infest the castle of its tiny dragon problem in order for the prince princess to be able to woo prince suitors from across the country, and a small task snowballs into more and more of this cozy fantasy quest adventure where Robert is getting way over his head. It's very Princess Bride meets Monty Python. There's some very fun static characters breaking out of their stereotypes, particularly Princess Cerise, and yet Peter S. Beagle still has some wonderful warm themes of found family and coming into yourself and realizing that you're more than what other people expect you to be. It's fun, it's fast, it's fantastical, and all the dragons in it are so fun. They're kind of like cats, except if cats also grew to the size of mountains. And on the subject of improv, what if we raised the stakes just a little bit higher? What if you had to improvise for your life? This book takes stage theater and smashes it with a horror movie, but then like imagine the whole thing was sponsored by Spirit Halloween. One of the funnest and funniest books I have on my shelf is the comedic fantasy Dreadful by Caitlin Rosakis, where our main character Gav wakes up in this dreadful wizard's workshop with no memory of who he is or how he got there, only to slowly figure out that he is the Dread Lord that everyone is afraid of, but he messed up a spell and now he's lost his memory and doesn't know what his evil plan was. But because no one else knows that, they all still think that he's a bad guy, and so he has to fake it till he makes it. Why does he have a princess locked in his basement? Why is he treating his goblin staff so poorly? And also, what kind of magic was he doing? Because now all these supervillains are asking him questions and he's like, please clarify. Also, why are there so many flaming skulls and red velvet in this castle? God, this is so tacky. A book about rewriting your script and reinventing yourself and realizing that you have to apologize for the harms that you've done while also continuously going forward as you're trying to be a better human being. We get to deconstruct tropes and step out of the role that we were assigned and find out that there's a little good in everybody. It's equal parts ridiculous and heartwarming. It's kind of like if the play that goes wrong had a mashup with Shrek, but no musical numbers. Moving to stage left, I wanted to talk about a book that actually doesn't really have anything to do with theater. Wait, do they own a theater? No, they own a club. It's similar, because being a part of something, being a part of the theater company, being a part of the production crew, that in itself is a type of theater magic that I personally love. I love being backstage during a production. It's always chaos, but it's always the best feeling. And we all know theater is incredibly queer. Everyone finds a community in theater, and this particular author, I think, does a very good job translating that feeling into written work. And I'm talking about Jess Everly. So she has the Restless Rule books. Nope, the rule book, the line. And I'm talking about Jess Everly, the author of the Lucky Lovers of London series. I have two of them. I have the rulebook for Restless Rogues and the Blue Stockings Guide to Decadence, which my girlfriend currently has. Babe, hurry up and read it. It's so good. You're gonna like it. And the whole series centers around a underground queer club and all the people that are involved in that and how queerness in Victorian society plays out. And because these books deal with both a physical club theater space and all of the pomp and pizzazz that goes along with putting on shows, but it also plays with the idea of having roles in society and what people expect to see from you. This is why I appreciate her not only as a historical writer, but as a writer of historical queer fiction, is that she does include the real life struggles of the queer community at that time. She doesn't shy away from talking about the real issues that are plaguing our characters in their society, but we also do get the warmness of found family, and particularly having a spot that everyone can converge and be themselves and not be afraid. But we also get the feel-good love story that we go to romance books for. And her books are also very sexy, which, if you're a theater kid, like, you know. There's a lot of shenanigans happening behind that velvet curtain, let me tell you. Moving to stage right, this next book takes place in a theater itself, but it also embodies the darker side of theater, the gothicness, the smoke and mirrors, the illusions, the things that captivate an audience. Because what is theater magic if not manipulation and trickery? One of my favorite books this year reawoke the urge that I have to just like haunt a theater balcony for a little while. And if you also want to have that drama in your life, I would highly recommend reading A Treachery of Swans by A.B. Paranik, a sapphic, dark retelling of Swan Lake, set in a French court-inspired fantasy setting with a darkly decrepit theater and ancient gods reawakening. Our main character, Odile, is the daughter of a sorcerer who wants to get this magical artifact in order to bring back magic, but in helping him on his quest, she has to take over the identity of Odette, who is her once-time best friend, so she turns her into a swan and then like infiltrates the palace, but then actually needs Odette's help because there's like some weird stuff going on. fun. So the two of them are tied together with old magic and guilt as a monster is wreaking havoc in the castle, and one of them might be to blame. This book feels like a blackout, where you're like, oh, there's something happening in the dark, but you don't know what it is. Elegant, it's grotesque, the writing really keeps you on edge. Her descriptions are so weird, but since Odile grew up in a theater, she is used to stepping into different roles and using theater to manipulate, and I love that aspect of it because a lot of theater books are like, woo, fun theater stuff, and this is like the darkness of the deceit and the illusion of theater. Their magic system is very cool. I love their old gods, but the way that they keep being drawn together again and again kind of feels like you're watching a play at the same time that you're reading it. It's very unique. This is what happens when the Sapphics use their theater degrees for evil. I don't know if you can tell this, but it is starting to get dark outside, so rehearsals have been going long. Now, as the curtains came up on the classic theater books, I do believe the final act should feature the book that I think is going to become one of the new staple books for theater kids. Not only does the story involve a theater troupe and puppetry, but it also uses those things as a device to talk about intergenerational trauma, emotion, and compassion, because at the end of the day, that's what theater is really about. It's about telling stories, it's about getting a response from the audience, and it's about letting people in to the world that you've created. One of the most beautiful books I've read, point blank period, that I also think would make a really good play. So if anyone could get on that, that would be stellar. Not me though, I am very bad at writing screenplays. And that is Thistlefoot by Jenna Rose Nethercott. A darkly whimsical contemporary fantasy about two siblings who inherit a house with chicken legs named Thistlefoot. And as the Yaga siblings take their home on a cross-country theater tour, they are stalked by the Long Shadow Man, the embodiment of a tragic history and the reason why the magical houses exist in the first place. A story on Jewish displacement from Eastern Europe that is so beautifully written and it integrates Jewish folklore and culture into a modern fantasy. And because our Yaga siblings are creators, they are performers and woodworkers and craftsmen, we get to see some behind the scenes of like what theater is really like, and maybe the less glamorous side of theater. But we also get to see the history of the house and the legacy that has caught up with them and how the two of them are trying to reinvent themselves over and over. If you are a person who loves stories, this is the book for you. I don't know if you can get more story than this. And with that, the curtains close on yet another video. But I will give a little theater curtsy and then thank you to the lighting department and thank you to the sound department and traditionally thank you to all of you. I can't believe that I've had a skull in the background the whole time and I never made a single Hamlet reference. Thank you all for joining me for today's performance. If you're watching this before 5 p.m., you've just watched the matinee, and if you're watching this at like 6 p.m. and afterwards, just a regular show for you, I guess. If you are watching this between the hours of 5 and 6, this is dinner hour. What are you doing here? As is likely apparent, I'm just a huge fan of stories, and theater is just a medium that I really, really enjoy. Being able to see it and also be involved in it. And if you are a fellow theater kid, please leave your favorite play to either watch or the one that you've been a part of. Or if you guys always had like a special cheer or chant that you did before going on stage. For me and my dance company, it's always 1, 2, 3, destruction! And now, since I have performed for a couple of hours, I do think it is time for my dinner break. So, I know the show must go on, but the show must not go on an empty stomach. You know where to click to like the video. You know where to click to subscribe. I hope you guys are all having a nice day wherever you are, and I will see you all next week. Bye!